Welcome to Lotus Light Teachings, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. In a world filled with noise, distractions, and endless demands, we often forget the power of silence. But what if silence was not an emptiness, but a source of strength? What if it could be the key to success, resilience, and deep inner peace? Today, we embark on a journey to master the power of silence, a secret that the wisest minds, from Buddhist monks to world leaders, have used to cultivate clarity, confidence, and influence. Stay with me until the end, because this lesson could transform the way you navigate life. Opening story: the power of silence in a chaotic world. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room full of people, and instead of the loudest person commanding attention, it was the one who spoke the least? There is something powerful about silence, something that commands respect, draws people in, and gives you control over your energy. Yet, we live in a world that constantly tells us to speak more, do more, and react faster. Think about the last time you sat in absolute silence. No phone, no music, no conversations, just you and your thoughts. Did it feel uncomfortable? Most of us are afraid of silence because it forces us to face ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions, our truths. But Buddhism teaches that silence is not emptiness. It is a gateway to wisdom, self-mastery, and unshakable peace. Today, I want to take you on a transformative journey to uncover why silence is your greatest power and how to use it as a weapon for success and inner strength. By the end of this video, you will discover: heavy checkmark, how silence gives you control over any situation. Heavy checkmark, how to turn loneliness into powerful solitude. Heavy checkmark, why the most successful people talk less and do more. Heavy checkmark, how to stop seeking validation and find freedom in silence. Heavy checkmark, the secret to responding to life's challenges with wisdom, not impulse. Are you ready to unlock this forgotten power? Let's begin. The power of silence, a lost art. Let me share a story with you. There was once a Japanese Zen master named Takuan Soho. One day, a young warrior approached him, frustrated with his constant failures in battle. "Master, why do I always lose? I train hard, I fight fiercely, yet I am defeated by those who seem less skilled than me." The master poured tea into a cup, filling it to the brim, and then kept pouring until the tea overflowed onto the table. The warrior looked on in confusion. "Your mind," the master said, "is like this cup, too full of words, thoughts, and noise. You must empty it, embrace silence, and only then will true wisdom guide your actions." The young warrior took his advice, practicing silence and stillness before every battle. Over time, he learned to observe, to wait, to move with clarity instead of impulse, and he became unstoppable. The lesson: we lose our power when we are too full of noise, talking too much, thinking too much, reacting too fast. But when we embrace silence, we gain control over ourselves and the world around us. How silence can change your life. We see this everywhere. The greatest leaders, the most influential minds, the people who truly succeed, they have mastered the art of silence. In business, the best negotiators use silence to control the conversation. The person who speaks first loses. In relationships, silence can deepen connections more than words ever could. In arguments, silence makes you appear composed, calm, and powerful. In life, silence allows you to think before reacting, making your decisions stronger and more intentional. So why do we resist silence? Because we fear it. We associate it with awkwardness, isolation, or weakness. But in truth, silence is power. The biggest misconception: loneliness versus solitude. Here's a deep truth. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Many of us feel uncomfortable being by ourselves. We constantly seek distractions, social media, conversations, entertainment, because the idea of sitting with our own thoughts is scary. But some of the most brilliant minds in history found their greatest ideas in solitude. Nikola Tesla, the genius inventor, would spend hours alone in silence before coming up with revolutionary ideas. He said he could visualize an entire invention in his mind before even touching a tool. Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple, practice silent retreats to gain clarity and inspiration. If the most successful people in the world embrace silence, why don't we? Because we were never taught how to sit with ourselves. What if, instead of fearing silence, we started embracing it? Instead of seeing alone time as loneliness, we see it as a chance to grow, to think, to master ourselves. That is the difference between the average person and those who achieve greatness. Silence as your secret weapon in life. Stillness isn't just about finding peace, it's about gaining control. Control over your reactions. Control over your emotions. Control over your focus and energy. Buddhism teaches that reacting impulsively is giving away your power. Think about it. If someone insults you and you react immediately, they control you. If social media upsets you and you engage in the negativity, it controls you. If every small problem makes you angry or anxious, you are at the mercy of the world. But if you learn to pause, to stay silent, to respond wisely, then you are in control. The final lesson: silence is strength. Silence is not a weakness. It is one of the greatest strengths you can develop. In a world obsessed with speaking, reacting, and proving ourselves, the ability to hold silence, observe, and act with wisdom is a rare and powerful skill. Want more confidence? Speak less, listen more. Want better relationships? Be silent and truly listen. Want success? Work in silence. Let your results speak. Want peace? Stop reacting to everything. Buddhism teaches that true power is not in controlling others. It is in mastering yourself. And silence is the key. Final challenge. Will you embrace silence? So now I ask you, how much noise is controlling your life? How often do you react impulsively, talk too much, or seek validation? What would happen if, for just 1 week, you committed to heavy checkmark practicing intentional silence every day? Heavy checkmark observing before reacting. Heavy checkmark focusing on action, not words. I promise you will feel a shift in your mind, in your emotions, in your power. And when you do, you'll understand why the wisest and most successful people in history valued silence above all else. Lesson 1. Silence as a superpower. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where words felt unnecessary, where saying nothing held more weight than saying something? Most people fear silence. We live in a world that equates talking with intelligence, socializing with confidence, and noise with progress. If you are quiet, people assume you are unsure, weak, or disengaged. But what if I told you that silence is one of the most powerful tools you can cultivate? Silence is not just an absence of words. It is a presence, a force, a statement in itself. Those who know how to wield it can command attention, influence decisions, and maintain control, not only in conversations but in life itself. But the question is, how do we harness this power? How do we transform silence from something we avoid into something we master? Let's explore this together. The pause that holds power. Imagine you are sitting in a negotiation room. It could be for a job interview, a business deal, or even a simple discussion with a friend. The conversation moves quickly until there is a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. Who breaks the silence first? Most people rush to fill it. They get nervous, second-guess themselves, and start talking, sometimes revealing more than they should. But the person who stays silent the longest often gains control. There's a reason the best negotiators, lawyers, and diplomats understand the power of silence. They know that silence makes people uncomfortable, and in that discomfort, people reveal their true thoughts. I once heard a story about a CEO who mastered this technique. He was in a high-stakes negotiation for a multi-million-dollar deal. Instead of over-explaining his position, he simply laid out his terms and then stayed silent. The other party, expecting an immediate follow-up, started talking, revealing concerns, weaknesses, and, most importantly, their true priorities. By the end of the conversation, the CEO had a much stronger deal than he anticipated, all because he knew when to stay quiet. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you spoken just to fill the space? What if, instead of rushing to answer, you let the silence do the work for you? Why most people struggle with silence. Silence is difficult because we have been conditioned to fear it. Think about it. From childhood, we are encouraged to speak up, contribute, and make noise. A quiet child is often seen as shy or withdrawn. A silent person in a group is assumed to be uncomfortable or uninterested. But have you ever noticed that the most respected people in a room are often the ones who speak the least? Silence is unsettling. It forces us to be present with our own thoughts. And for many, that is terrifying. But if you can become comfortable with silence, you gain an edge over 90% of people. You stop talking just to talk. You start listening deeply. You learn to observe before reacting. And that changes everything. The samurai and the art of silence. There's an old story about a samurai who sought wisdom from a Zen master. He was fierce, well-trained, and proud of his ability to win battles with his skill and words. One day, he asked the master, "What is the key to true power?" The master simply smiled and led him to a bamboo forest. He pointed at the tallest bamboo, which swayed gently in the wind, and then at a small, unbending tree that eventually snapped under pressure. The bamboo is strong because it is silent, flexible, and patient, the master said. It does not resist the wind. It does not break. It listens and moves with wisdom. The samurai understood power is not in aggression, but in stillness. In life, we are often like the unbending tree, talking too much, reacting too quickly, resisting when we should be still. But if we can be like the bamboo, silent, observant, strong in our flexibility, we will never break. Silence in everyday life, how to use it as a tool. Now, you may be thinking, okay, but how does this apply to me? How can I use silence as a superpower in my daily life? Let's break it down. 1. Use silence to gain respect. The more you talk, the more likely you are to dilute your words. The more you listen, the more people value what you do say. Next time you are in a meeting or a conversation, try this. Speak less, observe more. You will notice that when you finally do speak, people listen more intently, because they know your words matter. 2. Use silence to handle conflicts. Silence is an incredible tool for diffusing conflict. If someone insults you, what happens if you say nothing? If you do not react, do not engage, and simply let the silence sit? Most of the time, the power of their words disappears. Buddhist teachings often compare anger to a burning coal. If someone throws a hot coal at you, but you do not pick it up, who gets burned? The person holding it. Silence is that refusal to pick up the coal. 3. Use silence to strengthen relationships. Ironically, silence can deepen relationships more than words. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. But if you practice truly listening, without interrupting, without waiting for your turn to speak, something shifts. The other person feels heard, valued, and respected, and that creates trust. Try this in your next conversation. Instead of filling every gap, let silence breathe. Let the other person open up naturally. You will be surprised at how much stronger your connection becomes. The final thought, are you ready to embrace silence? There is a reason the greatest leaders, thinkers, and strategists understand the power of silence. In business, silence wins negotiations. In conflict, silence diffuses tension. In relationships, silence deepens connection. In self-mastery, silence cultivates wisdom. But here's the real question. Are you ready to embrace it? Can you sit with silence without feeling the need to fill it? Can you observe before you react? Can you let silence be your ally, rather than your enemy? If you can, you will unlock a power that few people ever will. And in a world that never stops talking, that power will set you apart. Lesson 2. Transform loneliness into solitude. The fear of being alone. Have you ever found yourself surrounded by people, yet feeling utterly alone? Or maybe you've sat in an empty room, and the silence felt so loud that it became unbearable? Loneliness is one of the most universal human experiences, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Most of us fear it. We avoid it. We distract ourselves with noise, with conversations, with endless scrolling through social media, at anything to escape that heavy, unsettling feeling of being alone. But what if I told you that being alone is not the problem? That loneliness is not about the absence of people, but about the absence of connection, not just with others, but with ourselves. This is where the shift happens. Instead of running from solitude, we can learn to embrace it. Instead of seeing it as a curse, we can transform it into a source of wisdom, clarity, and strength. Because solitude is not loneliness. It is a sanctuary, the hidden strength in solitude. Throughout history, some of the greatest minds have chosen solitude not out of necessity, but out of intention. Nikola Tesla spent hours alone each day, walking through parks, allowing his mind to explore new ideas. He didn't fear solitude, he used it to create. Steve Jobs, known for his intense focus and vision, often took silent walks when faced with big decisions. His most groundbreaking ideas were not born in loud meetings but in quiet reflection. Albert Einstein once said, "I live in that solitude which is painful in youth, but delicious in maturity." What did these visionaries understand that most of us don't? That solitude is not about isolation. It is about presence. The presence of your thoughts, your creativity, your clarity. But how do we reach that state? How do we move from fearing being alone to finding peace in it? The story of the hermit and the river. There is a Zen story of a hermit who lived in the mountains, away from all human contact. People from a nearby village often spoke of him. Some admired his wisdom, others pitied his loneliness. One day, a young man, struggling with feelings of emptiness, decided to seek out the hermit. After a long journey, he found the old man sitting by a small stream, gazing at the water in deep contemplation. The young man asked, "Why do you live alone? Doesn't loneliness consume you?" The hermit smiled and pointed at the flowing river. "Look at the water," he said. "It moves effortlessly with no need for company, no desire to be anything other than itself. It does not resist solitude. It embraces it." He continued, "People mistake being alone for being lonely, but solitude is where we meet ourselves. It is where we listen to the whispers of our own soul." The young man sat in silence, watching the river, and for the first time, he understood being alone was not about what was missing. It was about what was found, how to transform loneliness into solitude. So, how do we make this shift? How do we go from fearing our own company to cherishing it? 1. Reframe how you see solitude. The first step is changing the way you perceive being alone. Instead of seeing it as a void, see it as a sanctuary. Buddhism teaches that solitude is an opportunity to connect with the inner self, to detach from external noise, and to find clarity in stillness. Instead of saying, "I have no one to talk to," say, "I have an opportunity to listen to myself." Instead of thinking, "I feel empty," think, "This is a chance to fill myself with what truly matters." Solitude is not about who isn't there. It's about who is. 2. Learn to enjoy your own company. Many people struggle with solitude because they don't know what to do with themselves. We are so used to external stimulation. Phones, conversations, distractions. That when all of that is taken away, we feel restless. But here's the truth. If you don't enjoy your own company, why would anyone else? Try this. Set aside just 10 to 15 minutes a day to be completely alone. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just sit with yourself. At first, it may feel strange, even uncomfortable. But over time, you will notice something magical happen. You start to feel at peace. You begin to realize that you are enough. 3. Use solitude as a tool for growth. Solitude is where self-discovery happens. It is where we gain insights that are often drowned out by the noise of daily life. Imagine a jar filled with muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water remains cloudy. But if you let it sit still, the dirt settles, and the water becomes clear. Your mind works the same way. If you are constantly surrounded by noise and distractions, clarity will be impossible. But in moments of solitude, when you allow yourself to sit still, the mental mud begins to settle. Use this time to reflect on your goals and dreams. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Engage in deep work or creative thinking. Clarity doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from intentional stillness. 4. Find strength in silence. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. In a world that glorifies constant talking and socializing, the ability to sit in silence is rare. But those who embrace silence develop unshakable inner strength. Try this. Next time you are alone, resist the urge to grab your phone or turn on the TV. Instead, just be. Listen to your own breath. Feel the weight of your thoughts. Notice how silence is not your enemy. It is your teacher. 5. Embrace nature's solitude. If solitude feels uncomfortable indoors, take it outside. Nature is the perfect teacher of solitude. Go for a walk in the park, sit by a lake, or watch the sunset alone. Observe how the trees stand silently, how the waves move without needing an audience, how the wind whispers without expectation. Nature thrives in solitude. And so can you. The final thought. Can you be alone without feeling lonely? Here's something to reflect on. When was the last time you spent time alone and truly enjoyed it? Not scrolling through your phone, not waiting for someone to call, not distracting yourself with endless tasks, just being with yourself. Because the truth is, if you can learn to be at peace in your own solitude, you will never feel truly lonely again. And that is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. So, can you embrace solitude? Not as isolation, but as an opportunity? Can you turn loneliness into a sacred space for growth? The answer is already within you. You just need a little silence to hear it. Lesson 3. Use silence as a tactical weapon. The power in saying nothing. Have you ever been in an argument where you walked away thinking, I should have said this, I should have done that? Or have you ever felt exhausted after a confrontation, realizing that no matter how much you explained, nothing really changed? Most of us believe that words are our strongest tool in a conflict. We think that if we can just say the right thing, convince the other person, or defend ourselves properly, we'll win. But what if I told you that the most powerful response in many situations is silence? Silence is often misunderstood. People think it means surrender, avoidance, or weakness. But in reality, silence is a strategy, a tool, a form of control that few people know how to use effectively. When you master silence, you master your emotions. And when you master your emotions, you master the situation. But how exactly does silence work as a tactical weapon? Let's explore. The calm amidst the storm. Think about the last time you saw a heated argument unfold. Who looked more powerful? The person yelling, trying to dominate the conversation, or the one who remained calm, watching, choosing their words carefully, or not responding at all? The answer is almost always the latter. Why? Because silence unsettles people. It forces them to reveal more than they intend. It makes them question their own words. It creates a space where emotions settle and true intentions come forward. Great leaders, skilled negotiators, and wise individuals understand this deeply. In negotiations, the best dealmakers don't rush to speak. They let the other party talk first, knowing that silence compels people to fill the space, often revealing critical information. In arguments, those who hold their composure often gain the upper hand, because silence disarms aggression. In conflicts, silence creates mystery and unpredictability, making others reconsider their stance. But what happens when we don't use silence? We become reactive. We give away our power. We let others dictate our emotions. And that's exactly what we need to avoid. The monk and the gift of insults. There's an old Buddhist story that beautifully illustrates the power of silence in the face of conflict. A young student once approached a Zen monk and said, "Master, someone has insulted me. They attacked my character, belittled my efforts. I wanted to respond, to defend myself. But what should I do?" The monk smiled and asked, "If someone offers you a gift, but you do not accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The student thought for a moment and replied, "It would still belong to the person who tried to give it." The monk nodded. The same is true with anger, insults, and negativity. If you do not accept them, they remain with the one who gave them. What a profound lesson. When we react to provocation, we accept the negativity that is thrown at us. But when we choose silence, we refuse to take that burden. Silence is not just the absence of words. It is the presence of self-control. The psychology of silence in conflict. There's a reason why silence works so well in high-pressure situations. It disrupts the expected pattern of conflict. When someone is arguing or attacking, they expect a reaction. They want engagement. They want a response that they can feed off. But when you stay silent, something interesting happens. The aggressor becomes uncertain. They don't know if you're unaffected, calculating a response, or simply uninterested. The emotional charge of the situation decreases because there is no resistance. The silence itself forces them to think, sometimes making them second-guess their own stance. Think about a time when you tried to argue with someone who just didn't engage. How did it make you feel? Probably frustrated, right? This is the power of silence. It makes others uncomfortable while keeping you in control. Using silence in everyday situations. Now, you may be wondering, this all sounds great, but how do I actually use silence in my daily life? Here are some powerful ways to apply this principle. 1. When someone tries to provoke you, next time someone insults you, criticizes you unfairly, or tries to pull you into negativity, pause. Take a deep breath. Say nothing. Instead of reacting immediately, let the silence settle. Watch how the other person reacts. Most of the time, they will either soften their tone or expose their true emotions. If a response is necessary, choose your words carefully and calmly. Never react out of impulse. 2. In arguments, let the other person speak first. Silence can be a secret weapon in disagreements. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, listen first. Let the other person say everything they need to say. Often, in their own talking, they will reveal their emotions, their true concerns, and sometimes even contradict themselves. When you finally do respond, you will be coming from a place of clarity, not reaction. 3. In negotiations, use the power of the pause. The next time you negotiate, whether it's for a salary, a deal, or even a simple discussion, try this. After making your point, stay silent. Don't rush to fill the space. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, so they will often speak just to break it. And in doing so, they may reveal more than they intended, giving you a better position. In sales, in leadership, in life, those who speak less control more. 4. On social media, choose when to engage. We live in a world where everyone has an opinion on everything. It's easy to get caught up in debates, to feel the need to defend yourself or correct misinformation. But ask yourself, is this worth my energy? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Silence in the digital world is just as powerful as in real life. Choosing not to engage with negativity, drama, or pointless debates is an act of self-discipline. Your energy is precious. Don't waste it on battles that don't matter. The strength of restraint. Silence is not just about winning arguments or controlling situations. It's about mastering your own emotions. A person who can stay silent in anger is a person who cannot be manipulated. A person who can observe without reacting is a person who can see the truth. A person who chooses their words carefully will always be taken seriously. Takes strength to be silent. Takes wisdom to know when to speak. And when you learn to use silence as a tactical weapon, you gain something far more valuable than just control over a situation. You gain control over yourself. So, the next time you feel the urge to react, pause. The silence itself will show you what truly needs to be said, and what is better left unsaid. Lesson 4. Break free from the addiction to validation. The endless chase for approval. Have you ever posted something online and found yourself checking your phone over and over, waiting for the likes to roll in? Have you ever made a decision not because it was what you truly wanted, but because you knew it would impress others? If you have, you're not alone. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to seek validation through social media, through the opinions of others, through the way we present ourselves to the world. We crave approval, as if the number of likes or compliments we receive is a measure of our worth. But what if I told you that this endless chase for validation is a trap? A trap that keeps us from living authentically. A trap that makes our happiness dependent on things outside of our control. A trap that makes us forget that the only validation that truly matters is the one that comes from within. But how do we escape this cycle? How do we learn to find fulfillment in who we are, rather than how others perceive us? Let's explore together why we crave validation. From a young age, we are taught to seek approval. As children, we are rewarded with praise when we do something good and scolded when we do something wrong. In school, our worth is measured by grades, rankings, and recognition. In our careers, success is often defined by status, titles, and applause. We learn that we are good enough only when others say we are. And then social media takes it to another level. A simple post, a picture, a thought, an achievement becomes a public performance. Each like, each comment, each share feels like a small hit of approval, a temporary high that tells us, yes, you matter. But what happens when the likes stop coming? When no one notices, doubt creeps in. We start questioning ourselves. We wonder, am I not interesting enough? Not successful enough? Not lovable enough? And that is the greatest danger of validation-seeking. It makes our self-worth conditional. We let the outside world dictate how we feel about ourselves. And in doing so, we lose touch with who we really are. The man who never needed approval. Let's talk about Warren Buffett, the legendary investor, one of the richest men in the world. Unlike many others in the financial world, Buffett never chased trends. He never cared about what was popular at the moment. While others were looking for quick profits and trying to impress the world with flashy investments, Buffett stuck to his principles. Patience, long-term vision, and discipline. People called him old-fashioned. They doubted his methods. They criticized his slow and steady approach. But he didn't care. He wasn't investing to impress others. He was investing because he believed in his strategy. And over time, his quiet confidence paid off. He became one of the most successful investors in history. His lesson: stop chasing external approval. Focus on your path, and let your results speak for themselves. Imagine if he had let the opinions of others sway him. Imagine if he had needed validation to feel secure. He never would have built the empire he did. So the question is, how much of your own life has been shaped by the fear of not being validated? Breaking free from the need for validation. The good news? You can break free from this cycle, but it takes awareness, courage, and a shift in perspective. Here's how. 1. Redefine what success means to you. Take a moment and ask yourself, if no one could see what I was doing, if no one could give me praise or recognition, what would I still choose to do? True success is not measured by how many people applaud you. It's measured by how aligned you feel with your values, your purpose, and your own sense of fulfillment. If you are living a life that makes you proud, even if no one is watching, you have already won. 2. Learn to validate yourself. Instead of waiting for someone else to tell you, you did a great job, learn to say it to yourself. Instead of posting online and hoping for likes, ask yourself, do I like what I created? Self-validation is a skill. It's the ability to recognize your own growth, your own strengths, and your own efforts without needing external confirmation. Try this each day. Before seeking any outside opinion, pause and reflect on what you think and feel first. Did you accomplish something meaningful today? Celebrate it. Did you make progress on something personal? Acknowledge it. Did you do something challenging? Appreciate your effort. Make it a habit to be your own biggest supporter, not your biggest critic. 3. Practice the no validation challenge. For 1 week, challenge yourself. Seek no external validation. No unnecessary social media posts for approval. No fishing for compliments. No asking others if you're doing the right thing. Instead, focus on what feels right to you. Notice how liberating it feels to not rely on others' opinions. Notice how much mental space you gain. At first, you may feel uneasy. You might feel the urge to check in with others for approval. But over time, you'll start to trust yourself more. And that trust, that's where real confidence comes from. 4. Understand that not everyone will approve. And that's okay. Here's the truth. No matter what you do, not everyone will approve. You could be the kindest, smartest, most hardworking person in the world, and still, someone will criticize you. And that's okay, because the goal is not to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be authentic to yourself. So instead of fearing judgment, ask yourself a better question. Am I living in a way that feels true to me? When you can answer yes to that, you will stop needing validation from others. The freedom that comes from letting go. Imagine a life where you are no longer controlled by what people think. A life where you make decisions not for approval, but for yourself. A life where you feel confident without needing recognition. A life where your happiness is not tied to likes, comments, or applause. That kind of freedom is possible. But it starts with a choice. The choice to trust yourself more than the world's opinions. The choice to define your own worth. The choice to validate yourself because you are already enough. So tell me, if no one was watching, if no one could judge what would you choose to do? That is the path you should follow. Lesson 5. Let results be your loudest voice. The noise of empty promises. Have you ever met someone who talks endlessly about their goals but never takes action? Maybe they say, I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to get in shape, or I'm going to write a book. Yet, months pass and nothing changes. We all know someone like that. Maybe at some point in our lives we have been that person. Talking about dreams feels good. It gives us a sense of progress, even when nothing has actually been done. The problem? Words don't create change. Actions do. Buddhism teaches that the ego craves recognition, but wisdom lies in quiet, consistent effort. True confidence doesn't come from announcing plans. It comes from executing them. So why do so many people talk instead of act? And how can we shift our focus from seeking attention to achieving real results? Let's explore why we feel the need to announce our goals. The moment we tell someone about a big goal, we feel a rush of excitement. Their encouragement, their admiration. It feels like a small victory. Psychologists call this the intention-action gap. When we talk about something, our brain rewards us as if we've already made progress. But in reality, nothing has happened yet. Social media has made this even worse. It has turned personal growth into a performance. We see people posting their workout routines, their business plans, their self-improvement journeys. Not because they've achieved anything yet, but because validation feels good. But here's the harsh truth. Talking about success does nothing. Doing the work does everything. The greatest people in history, the real achievers, didn't waste time boasting about what they were going to do. They let their results speak for them. The martial artist who spoke in actions. There's a well-known story about a young martial artist who trained in silence, away from the eyes of the world. One day, a group of students asked him, "Why don't you boast about your skills? Why don't you tell people how strong you are?" The martial artist smiled, walked up to a stack of bricks, and without a word, broke them with a single strike. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. His results spoke louder than words ever could. Now, imagine if he had been like many people today. He might have posted on social media, saying, "Training hard, big things coming." But would that have meant anything? No, because in the end, only results matter. How to let your actions speak for you. So how do we shift from talking about success to actually achieving it? 1. Work in silence, let results make the noise. The next time you set a goal, resist the urge to announce it. Keep it to yourself. Let your progress be internal, not a performance for others. Instead of saying, "I'm going to run a marathon," train in silence and let people see you cross the finish line. Instead of saying, "I'm starting a business," build it quietly and let people notice when it's successful. This isn't about hiding your success. It's about making sure your success is real before you share it. 2. Stop seeking external validation. Many people talk about their goals because they need approval. They want reassurance. They want to feel like they're on the right path. But here's something to think about. If your success depended on no one else's opinion, would you still pursue it? If the answer is yes, that means your goal is truly yours. If the answer is no, it means you're doing it for validation, not for yourself. The happiest, most successful people don't need approval. They trust their own path. 3. Focus on small, consistent actions. Talking about a goal is easy. Doing the work is hard. Many people fail because they set huge, dramatic goals but never take the small steps needed to achieve them. If you want to write a book, don't talk about being an author. Just write one page today. If you want to get in shape, Don't post about your fitness journey. Just do a workout. If you want to start a business, don't announce it. Just make the first sale. Small actions compound. Over time, they turn into real, undeniable results. Let others notice, not you. Here's a challenge for you. For the next 6 months, work without announcing anything. No social media updates about your progress. No telling friends about your future plans. No seeking validation for your efforts. Just do the work, quietly, consistently, and then one day people will see the difference. They will ask, "Wow, how did you do that?" And you will smile. Because you let your results be your voice. The quiet power of execution. The world is full of noise. Everyone is talking, sharing, announcing, but very few are doing. The ones who actually succeed. The ones who create, build, achieve. They don't waste time on words. They let their work speak. So the question is, are you going to be the person who talks about success? Or are you going to be the person who creates it? Lesson 6. Discover freedom in not reacting. The trap of reacting too quickly. Have you ever said something in anger and regretted it moments later? Or reacted to a situation so impulsively that it made things worse? We've all been there. In the heat of the moment, emotions take control. Our heart beats faster. Our mind races. And before we even think, words escape our lips, actions follow, and we find ourselves caught in a cycle we didn't intend. But here's the truth. Reactivity is a trap. Keeps us stuck. It makes us slaves to our emotions. It allows others to control our peace. Buddhism teaches that true freedom comes from learning to pause. To observe emotions without immediately acting on them. Because the moment you stop reacting impulsively, you gain something incredibly powerful. Control over your own life. The sky and the passing clouds. There is a famous Zen teaching that says, "You are like the sky. Your emotions are just passing clouds. Do not chase them. Simply observe and let them pass." Think about that for a moment. No matter how stormy the clouds may be, the sky itself remains untouched. The sun is still shining behind them. The sky does not panic, does not resist. It simply allows the clouds to move through. Now, imagine if we could do the same with our emotions. Imagine feeling anger rise inside you. But instead of lashing out, you simply observe it. Imagine feeling anxiety bubbling up. But instead of letting it take over, you simply watch it come and go. This is the secret to emotional freedom. Not suppressing emotions, not ignoring them. But witnessing them without attachment. And when you master this, you become unshakable. The power of pausing. There's a story about a great samurai who once approached a Zen master. "Master," he said, "I have a terrible temper. When I am provoked, I cannot control myself. I react without thinking, and I regret it later. What can I do?" The master smiled and handed him a cup of tea. "Take this," he said, "and walk across the garden. But there's one rule. You must not spill a single drop." The samurai carefully carried the tea, walking slowly, his focus entirely on the cup. When he reached the other side, the master asked, "Tell me, when you were walking with the tea, did you get angry?" The samurai shook his head. "No, master. I was too focused." The master nodded. "Then you see. The key to self-control is attention. When you place your mind on something greater, your emotions do not control you. The next time anger rises, focus your mind. Just as you focused on the tea." The samurai understood. The lesson: where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you focus on reacting, emotions will consume you. But if you focus on being aware, you take back control. Why reactivity keeps us stuck. We live in a world that thrives on quick reactions. Someone insults us. We fire back. A comment online upsets us. We argue. A problem arises. We panic. But what does this actually achieve? Nothing. In fact, reacting emotionally often makes things worse. It fuels conflict. It drains our energy, keeps us in cycles of regret. Have you ever noticed that the wisest people don't rush to respond? They pause. They breathe. They assess. They understand something most people don't. Not everything requires a reaction. Silence is often stronger than words. A calm mind is often more powerful than a quick defense. And sometimes the best response is no response at all. How to master the art of not reacting. So, how do we train ourselves to stop reacting impulsively? 1. The next time you feel emotionally triggered, do nothing. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The next time you feel anger, frustration, or anxiety bubbling up, pause. Don't speak. Don't act. Just observe. Picture the emotion like a wave in the ocean. If you jump into it, it will pull you under. But if you stand still, it will rise and then fade. Give yourself 10 seconds. Just breathe. You will be amazed at how much clarity you gain in that short moment. 2. Label the emotion instead of becoming it. Instead of saying, I am angry, try saying, I am experiencing anger. There's a difference. The first statement identifies you with the emotion. You become the anger. The second simply acknowledges that anger is passing through. This small shift in language can help create emotional distance, making it easier to stay in control. 3. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of what upsets us isn't worth our time. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A coworker makes a rude comment. A stranger criticizes you online. Will reacting to any of these things improve your life? Probably not. So before you react, ask, does this deserve my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. And when you realize that, it's easier to let go. 4. Redirect your focus to something constructive. If you feel anger or frustration rising, don't suppress it. Redirect it. If someone upsets you, instead of arguing, go for a walk. If stress builds up, instead of complaining, write down your thoughts. If you feel tension, instead of reacting, focus on your breath. Energy is neither good nor bad. It all depends on where you direct it. When you channel emotions into something productive, you transform them into growth rather than destruction. 5. Practice the delayed response rule. If a situation is emotionally charged, follow this rule. Wait before you respond. If it's an argument, wait a few minutes. If it's an important decision, wait a few hours. If it's life-changing, wait a few days. This space prevents regret and allows logic to lead instead of impulse. Wisdom doesn't come from quick reactions. It comes from thoughtful responses. The freedom that comes with control. Imagine a life where no one can force you to be upset, where people's words no longer shake you, where challenges arise, but you remain calm and composed. This is true freedom. Not freedom from difficulties, but freedom from being controlled by them. And it all starts with one thing, choosing not to react. So, the next time an emotion rises, will you let it control you? Or will you simply watch it pass like a cloud in the sky? If today's lesson resonated with you, I invite you to take this journey deeper. Subscribe to Lotus Light Teachings for more wisdom on mindfulness, success, and inner mastery. Leave a comment below. How do you feel about silence? Does it make you uncomfortable? Or have you experienced its power before? Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Because in a world full of noise, silence is a gift. Remember, true strength is not in loudness. It is in silence. Now go and master it.